Wait, what did you say about a meal? We've got to get out of here before he gets back. I didn't save the eggs in Croc too. I'm not going to make that mistake again.
So, you think you can run from me, do you, cobber? Well, now I'm... Huh? What? No! Take my kids, I take your life.
Man, look at that! A real bona fide crocodile egg! Why the fuck did I steal it? What was I thinking? Now that bastard is gonna come looking for them. And the worst thing of all, the damn thing talks! Something is alive inside this egg, so I need to be very delicate with this thing. Oh my god! A baby croc! You're going in the machine, you little bitch!
Croc on Game Boy Color was released in 2000 on June 6th. Well, shit, he's no baby Croc. He's of legal drinking age here in Australia. Have one of these, mate. There you go, suck it down. Now, I haven't played too many Game Boy titles in my day, but going off of the title screen, this looks and sounds like Croc. The game is a side-scroller, as you may expect, and at a glance, it doesn't look too awful. We still make our way through caves and different areas, exploring the same 4 lands from the console and PC version. So it is faithful, but let me tell you what it's really like. The concept is the same as the first game. Progress through the levels, smashing Dantinis, collecting crystals and saving gobbos. It's simple enough like the first game and follows that trend with the controls. I couldn't call it bad, but something just feels off about it. Whether the screen is zoomed in too far or Croc is just inherently quick, I find myself gradually tapping myself forward and stopping after every jump. You have to be very deliberate while platforming here because it's easy to fuck up and die. Or maybe I'm just not used to portable games. I'm not ruling that out either. But then look at this shit. First level of the game and I can't even kill these guys. There is no range to Croc's attacks. You literally have to be on top of enemies to land a hit, and even then, it still doesn't connect. You can R-slam them, but your only other option is attacking while on the move. And just take a guess how that works out. Fucking perfectly, every time. Attacking on the move keeps your momentum, causing you to fall into pits or other hazards. If you're like me, then you're thinking of the original Crash Bandicoot where the same thing happened, but this is much worse. As you go through the levels, you can also find these letters that spell bonus, and collecting all of them grants you access to a mini-game where you can rescue an extra gobbo, like the original.
Can I just say one thing though? Fuck these things! I hate them! Some of the other mini-games are okay, but this is just pain and suffering. This first area really isn't much to write home about, if I'm being honest.
Audibly, the experience is familiar with remixed, bit-crushed versions of the music we heard last time, but visually, what happened to the bright and vibrant art design? I know we're on much weaker hardware, but everything just looks all dark and smudgy. Everything is green and brown, so Croc starts to blend into the background, and it's just not pleasant. Even the snow levels manage to be primarily green. What's with that? Before the first boss, we've got this impossible level inside of mine. I run for maybe 10 seconds and get killed every time. I found through sheer luck mashing buttons that there is actually a run ability which is key to this level. Yeah, try neatly platforming while Green Sonic here charges through the damn place. Green Sonic being Vector, of course. Man, I was determined to work that in there, wasn't I? Only half the bosses from the first game are here, and Flibby is up first. Awful. The others are okay, nothing special, but still better than this. Once we reach the snow area, things take a strange turn. In a real Croc 2 move, now all of a sudden we have a heap of vehicle levels in each area. First we're riding along this chairlift, and now we're skiing. Really? Fucking cross-country Croc over here! I was not ready for this. Moving on to the desert area, I must say, very pleased with how all of this looks. A lot of red in the caves, but it's just a breath of fresh air in comparison to everything else so far. Just be wary of those water fountains though, they're a killer. Glad they kept that sound logic of having Croc be hurt by water, and yet still having no problem swimming through the stuff. Yes, this game does actually retain the underwater levels, and while the original games wasn't the worst I'd ever played, this here is getting pretty close. I hadn't really noticed it until now, but this game has an awful problem scrolling vertically. Down seems fine, but up jars the graphics so much, it's actually starting to hurt my eyes trying to look at this. In fairness, you most likely wouldn't notice it on an actual Game Boy screen, but through the GameCube, this is painful to look at. Luckily for me, with these pathetic but super short vehicle levels, this thing will be over soon. The castle area doesn't have any vehicles, but actually does a pretty decent job at building up suspense for the ending of the game. Starting off walking up through the jungle, climbing the castle walls and entering, only to find some confusing levels and our final opponent. Baron Dante offers a good challenge while you're learning his patterns, but in the end, he's taken down without much of an issue. Croc is congratulated by all the gobbos in the land and then sits to reflect on his journey. The entire final act really gave me some Castlevania vibes, and that was the last thing I expected to get from this game. I'd like to start off my closing thoughts by making it known this was very faithful to the original game. But while the music and some of the visuals were really good, I do think the game overall doesn't look good, even by the system's standards and what was possible before it. The structure of the normal levels was about what you'd expect from a game like this, and the vehicles, even though short-lived, did actually help to break the game up instead of dragging it to a halt as we saw last time. But the control, man, it's not the best. For what it is, it was okay, but in the grand scheme of things, Croc 2000 was below average for me. So Croc on Game Boy Color gets 4 out of 10. Honestly, I think that score fairly represents this downgraded port. Not as good as the original, obviously, but not a total drop off a cliff either, like we saw last year with Perfect Dark on N64 and its translation to Game Boy Color. Where did that other bugger get to? Gotcha! The Game Boy Color sequel starts off with a much more concise opening cutscene. Gone is the awkward silence in exchange for basic dialogue actually explaining that this is a quest to find Croc's parents. Thank you! He pack attacks away and we land right into the game. First impressions lead me to believe I'm being tricked into playing an RPG here, bloody Croc's Awakening or some shit, but no, the game is just an overhead view. I do think it works for the format a lot better, seeing as Croc 2 was presented in a more open manner. Each area only has 3 levels and then a boss to continue. We've still got the unnecessary addition of a store, but at least none of it matters all that much. These levels still retain some of the loose themes from the original, such as saving a gobbo from a cage, finding treasure and retrieving a stolen sandwich, but the levels for the most part are just about getting to the end. Something that's much easier said than done. Majority of the levels split somewhere along the line, sometimes multiple times per location, but because nothing with the graphics really stands out, it's very easy to get lost and forget where you've already been, as enemies respawn and the world is barren of items. It's so empty. And so fucking green too. Look how green this is. The only game I've ever seen that's greener than this is fucking Stampede on Atari 2600 for Christ's sake. And it just makes me wonder, how have I made it this far without mentioning this problem that's plagued the entire series? Let's take a look at Crash Bandicoot. Why is he orange? Because orange is generally a colour that is going to stand out from the background. Same for Mario's predominant colour being red. It stands out from most natural backgrounds. Croc is green, the primary colour of this entire series. It's unescapable, and because of that, Croc blends in so easily. With every game, it just got worse and worse to the point where I can't ignore it anymore. Even though it is only the first and final worlds that are mostly affected by this, the entire game overall has such a weaker colour palette in comparison to Croc 2000. Even though that game was a bit darker and had a nice blur smeared across the entire image, we had a rainbow of colour throughout with sunsets, spooky night scenes, deserts and caves, but in Croc 2 there is only green on brown, white on blue, brown on red, and green on grey. Not to mention all the black that's everywhere. Man, this really is Croc 2 on Game Boy Color. More like Game Boy without much colour! The music here is also pretty lackluster and repetitive as all hell. In a very Legend of the Gobbos move, this game removes all the pointless vehicles that ruined the second game, so all we do is walk around these maze-like levels, trying to find our way and solve some puzzles in the process. Any platforming you come across can be pretty annoying as well, because of shoddy depth perception. The exact reason Zelda never tried jumping in his games. In an attempt at fairness though, I can't completely shit on this game. The bosses, while fairly easy and very basic, are an improvement over the previous Game Boy Color game, and even though certain areas can be annoying, levels for the most part are fine for a handheld title anyway. Getting through to the end and facing Dante was actually a solid reward, to be perfectly serious with you. Definitely the best final boss of the Croc series so far. Yes, no bullshit. I really enjoyed this. The music has that big fight feel, and while it's still basic in design, the pace keeps your heart rate up and makes actually destroying him all that more satisfying. We don't get the true ending because be fucked if I'm going back through looking for golden gobshites, but I still felt like that journey was worth it in the end. I wish I had more to say about this game, but there really isn't much to it. It's tedious, yes, but still not totally awful to play anyway. I think had it had a few extra stages involving vehicles or just something to break it up, it could have been better. But still, I enjoyed myself with this as much as I did playing through the actual Croc 2. However, it's still not on that game's level technically. Croc 2 on Game Boy Color gets 3 out of 10. I think the lack in variety and somehow worse graphical showcase here was the biggest nail for this coffin. It's just a shame, really. What I'd call the best Dante boss to date is here tucked away behind the lowest scoring game of the series. And yes, this is a portable game, so you've got to remember and take that into account, but I'm sorry. Croc just seemed dead in the water before he even got on his feet. Well, that's the Croc series, ladies and gentlemen. Very short-lived in the end.
Where are me fucking kids? Any last words, Cobber?
Yeah, actually I do. Splat, motherfucker!